And just we keep on talking back to a new Gravity Falls episode review. And if you're in this last one, go and check it out. And we're back with the next episode of Season 2 of Gravity Falls. And yeah, we see that the Mystery Shack is temporarily closed for repairs, since that whole tragedy that happened, right, from the last episodes. But yeah, we see that Dipper, Mabel, and Grunkle Stan are just relaxing. And yeah, we see Stan's brother just coming in with this mutated creature. And yeah, they're having to avoid it. And of course Dipper is wanting to, talk about with his great uncle Ford about all these different things that he wrote in his book. But of course can't do it, of course. Which, yeah, of course that makes Dipper all upset. And yeah, of course Stan is like, yeah, you do not want to get involved with the stuff that he's working on down there in the basement. And yeah, they're just doing like ducks because of the whole duck detective. And yeah, we see that Mabel is writing to their parents. And we see all these different things on the TV, including a wrecking ball when it comes to about fixing the town. And yeah, we see that, yeah, Zero, we have two Grunkles for the price of one, and they are adorable together. Yeah, only Mabel would write something like that. And then Dipper says that he actually found something, and this is Dungeons, and More Dungeons board game. And of course, C is not wanting to do it because all she wants to do is be able to do some unicorns. And of course, she says, "Oh, look, Zeus is here. Maybe you can play with Zeus." But of course, Zeus is not going to be doing it because, yeah, he has his own little activity that he does with the two officers and that one guy. And yeah, it seems like Grunkle Stan is going to be wanting to do it. But of course, yeah, he's not doing on all of that. And yeah, Dipper is like, this is just sad when he's literally playing with a goat. And then his dice ends up under the porch. And then he goes into the basement, which he sees the dice and the creature. And then, of course, his granduncle Ford tells him that he told him that to not stay in here, or to not be down here, because of all the stuff that is happening. But then he recognizes the dice from the game and says it was one of his absolute favorites. And he is actually willing to play the game with Dipper. And yeah, we see Stan and Mabel having all the snacks and stuff that they need. And yeah, this cool device that she made with the snacks. And even making a recreation of the whole duck detective. And yeah, we see Dipper and his great uncle Ford playing the game. And yeah, we see this funny like commercial thing when it came to this old Dungeons game, which is in a very interesting style. And Dipper is of course wondering what is behind the curtain, which of course his great uncle Ford tells him that he can't tell him that because, yeah, he just doesn't want to get any of his family in the mess of things. And shows him this very interesting dice that is unpredictable of what could happen. Which, yeah, of course, Mabel just trying to go to sleep. And Dipper is like, I finally have somebody that would actually, not make fun of the things that I do. And yeah, we see Grenda is there ready to watch the Duck Detective with Grunkle Stan. And then they see Dipper and Ford just playing their game, board game, and all these different notes and stuff inside the living room, which of course they get in an argument, and they end up throwing the actual the whole dice, and yeah, the actual characters come to life, and does this blast through the mystery sack and take Dipper and his Uncle Ford, and they're on a battle quest. They're having to go on a battle quest, which, of course, Glinda is like, we could just go and watch the Duck Detective. And yeah, of course, Uncle Stan doesn't really care, but they're like, we're going to have to find some weapons. And yeah, they managed to find some weapons for them to go on the quest to save them. And yeah, they have them tied to a tree, and talk about eating their brains too. And we see this elf and lighting this pot, and yeah, we see this fairy apparently that Uncle Stan squishes on his back, and yeah, we see one of the trolls and gets defeated instantly by Glinda. And yeah, they're having to play a real life version of the Dunsons and More Dungeons. And yeah, of course, having them as the actual players, Dipper and his Uncle Ford. And yeah, we see them having to dodge, and of course, it's like, it's one of those games where you can just make up whatever and it'll actually come true. And yeah, we see these really interesting, really cool things too that happen. And this whole horse, though, is quite funny. And then they see this one last beast, which, of course, Stan being, a whole gambler, he does the dice and manages to get them to get these cupcakes that manage to explode the monster. And yeah, they end up winning. And the guy ends up going back into the game. And yeah, Stan apologizes to Dipper. And yeah, they're wondering if on down watching the second running of the Duck Detective. And yeah, they're watching it. And Dipper then says that his uncle then tells him that yeah, he can use it whenever he wants, apparently. It's just, of course, locked in a container, and tells him about what he's been working on through the whole, curtain. And he says that he demolished the whole portal. He just can't risk any other things happening with the family. And shows him this weird thing encased that he managed to encase in, and tells Dipper not to tell anyone, not Stan or his sister, not anybody. And he promises, and he just closes it up. And yeah, we see Suze and the two cops and that other guy just playing in the cardboard boxes, which is quite funny. But yeah, really good episode. I'd like to know what y'all think. Let me know. Consider